What is going on, traders, and welcome to Friday. As we roll into the weekend, let's have a look and see what we're going to do in regards to the price of Bitcoin leading into this weekend. All right, so we've had a bugger all move, to be perfectly honest. We've had less than a 3% whipsaw, and we really are still sitting right on this regressive trend line as we come through the middle here. It really isn't showing a lot of decision. We're pretty much average. So what we've got here is we've created another level of structural liquidity in the hourly zone at 61,390. We've created an additional one to the downside as support at 60,130. We've got another one. We are starting to get really close here. These aren't levels that I'm looking at taking, but it's definitely worth having on the charts so we can see how things relate. If there's a breakthrough and it moves above, then it's something that we can consider. But what we'll do is we'll look at a few other charts today, and we'll go from there, just to gain a bit more clarity as to where we think Bitcoin will be going. All right, so we've got another additional sell side liquidity at 60,950. What's interesting to see at this one is at the 60,950, if this average trend line with the 2 standard deviation regressive trend is going to continue, within a few hours that's going to be on the buy side liquidity. And yet if it's on the buy side liquidity and we're still in the buy side, if it's in the buy side liquidity and it's still above us as support, that could lead us to the idea that we could be potentially moving to the downside, because it will be a significant resistance. However, if we manage to break through it in the intermediate term, and then we could actually find it as a little bit of as a sell spot, as a sell position, which is really good to see. So what we've got here is we are on the buy side, but really we're in the middle. We're pretty much here we were at 60,330 yesterday, and now we are at 60,600. There's not a lot of move. So we do still have the two biases set up. We do have this level down here that as we move further across in time, we are starting to come outside of the regressive trend line. Nothing to say that the regressive trend line is merely an idea, a context as to where the market is and where we're looking. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. I don't trade off these lines. However, I see them as an extension from a trend, looking to use as gravity lines to pull back into that middle line, the regressive trend line in the middle. So, with that being said, so we've got Bitcoin here. Let's have a look at the S&P 500. Now, we've had this sell-off this morning. We've recovered slightly. The area that was our significant buy line has now become a level of resistance. So let's just zoom in here. We'll reset the chart view. We were anticipating back here on Wednesday for upside. We got it. However, we didn't get a buy zone. Where are we? Let's tidy things up. The retest level is done, which was a nice area for shorting. See, let's just show that. See if we can just pull up that regressive trend line. Where are we? Yes. All right, perfect. So what we see here is kind of what I was talking about in the Bitcoin chart, in that, where are we? Let's come back here. So in the Bitcoin chart, we were talking about a support line, a resistance line that is sitting in the buy side liquidity of a regressive trend channel, is an area where that could be a potential resistance. So anything above here is resistance leading to the downside. Anything on this side is really take profit targets. And where we are is like because this trend line came up so fast, it could potentially mean that it is exhausted. And so that leads us to the idea that we could be moving to the downside. So here we are, we've come down, that was a retest and then it got wicked, so that got mitigated. This buy zone is fulfilled, that is gone, that one was taken out. So now we've got this level down here as our support at 5,564. We've got nothing up here until the highs. We need to form in a little bit of structure as we come down. And although this is like from 23 to 13, we're talking at 12 hours, 13 hours here, 23. So we're looking at about, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, sorry. We've got 13 hours here where we do have a short-term trend. So because that is the high, let's pull it down. As we can see, we don't have any level of resistance here because we were wicked out on this 2 o'clock hourly candle with this wick. But we have expanded outside the 2 standard deviations. So we've come down out here. We're on the buy side. The ideal spot to buy would have been here because we're still in the buy, and on the buy side of the regressive trend to move up. However, we didn't do that. We ended up coming down, exhausting ourselves, and now we're here. And for this to stay fulfilled, we do have to find ourselves back in there to move higher. But if we don't get that, with this downtrend channel formed here, we are on the sell side. So that does give us the context and a little bit of evidence that we could potentially come out to here and then move down to lower prices. However, we do need to see something where we come up for a candle, fall for a candle, come up and liquidate that candle again to move down to lower prices. So we need a swing failure pattern. We need a liquidity candle to take out the high to move down into lower prices for us to give us a short trade on the S&P 500. So that gives us a little bit of context that we can potentially move lower to the S&P 500. Now we also know that Bitcoin moves in parity, not to the same percentage, but in parity generally to the S&P 500 because they are both risk-on assets. So let's look at the DXY. So the DXY has come at support. We have broken the downtrend that was causing the uptrend of the S&P 500. Now we have broken out, just like the S&P has broken out of the uptrend. We are now forming a downtrend. Getting dizzy. All right, so now we're forming an uptrend on the DXY, just as the S&P is forming a downtrend. We are at a little bit of support here. If we start to see movement up here, now we don't have to worry too much about resistance levels in the sense that, oh my gosh, we don't have to worry too much because this isn't what we are trading, but we're using it as a barometer. So we've got a level here, we've got a level, so that's at 101.50, and then we've got a level at 101.614. So as we start to come up through here, we are going to see weakness in BTC, Bitcoin, and S&P 500. So that gives us context that as the US dollar gets stronger, all the money that is made by the companies in the S&P 500 that they make overseas is going to be weaker, which is going to pull down the S&P 500, which is going to pull down the value of those companies. Now, let's move on to the VIX. it's pretty clear that we are in a downtrend from the high of the Japanese carry trade. We've talked about it, and here it is again. So let's line it out. On a logarithmic scale, clearly we are expanding, but that's just how logarithmic works. But we are on the sell side of that, which is fine. But we also want to see that with this low up to the current price, we are in, let's move up closer, we are in the sell side of liquidity, but we are starting to move up. We are forming from a low to a high, to a low, to a higher high, take out liquidity, and we're moving higher. So what we're seeing here is volatility is increasing. As volatility increases, so does fear. And as volatility increases and fear increases, risk on assets like Bitcoin and the S&P 500 lose price. So we're seeing a price increase on we're seeing value increase on the volatility on the VIX. We're seeing a price increase on the DXY, and we're starting to see a little bit of weakness in the S&P 500. So that's starting to give us context that we can be looking to these lower prices in the short term for Bitcoin. So this is the side that I am erring on, with the context that from here we are starting to look to these lower prices, maybe lower, or maybe we're going to come down and we'll take these to move higher. So that is my current context. We could potentially be coming right down through here. I'm certainly not, if we look here, there's lots of liquidity levels that we can take out. There's just so many. We're up the top here. We've got a little bit of congestion at the 63,700 to the 64,200, but we've got so much to take through here. There are so many levels that we can definitely expand. We can expand price to the downside and really liquidate those liquidity levels. So that is my current bias, is that we are potentially going to go to the downside. So that's where I'm leaning. However, with the idea that we could potentially come up to the upside, we could be coming up to the 61,800 level and sell down, or we could be coming up to take out this level here. I should probably go to say that this one will be coming down here to these levels. Alright, so that's where I'm looking at for the trade into this weekend. I hope everyone has a fantastic trading afternoon, evening, and Saturday morning. And I look forward to seeing you Monday. Alright, ciao for now. Peace.